The royal hall of the Valyrian Empire shimmered with silver light. Tall crystal pillars glowed with energy, and hundreds of alien nobles gathered to witness something strange. A marriage between their beloved Princess Lysera and a human from Earth. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had no great empire, no ancient technology, no special powers. Compared to the mighty races that ruled the stars, humans were ordinary, and yet one of them was about to become the husband of the Valyrian princess. At the center of the grand hall stood Ethan Cole, wearing a plain dark suit. His calm blue eyes moved across the alien faces, staring at him. Some were curious, others disgusted. The air buzzed with whispers. "That's him? The human? He looks so fragile. What does the princess see in such a weak creature?" Ethan heard them all but said nothing. He simply stood beside Lysera, tall and composed. He wasn't smiling, but there was no fear in his eyes either. Lysera glanced at him. She was beautiful, her silver skin reflecting the light of the twin suns. Her expression was calm but cold. Deep inside, she too believed what everyone said. Humans were harmless, emotional beings, weak compared to the powerful races of the stars. Still, she had agreed to this political union. The human diplomat had offered an alliance, and her council had pushed her toward it. A harmless ally is a safe ally, they had said. The ceremony began. The high priest raised his hand, his voice echoing through the hall. "By the stars and by the light of Valyra, this union shall bring peace between our worlds." Applause filled the air. Lysera smiled gracefully. Ethan bowed his head politely. And yet, as his hand touched hers, she felt something strange. A quiet strength, not physical but deeper, like the calm before a storm. That night, a royal banquet followed. The table sparkled with glowing fruits and drinks that changed color in the light. Nobles from every corner of the empire gathered, laughing, drinking, and whispering. Ethan sat quietly, observing everyone. He didn't eat much. He didn't speak unless spoken to. One of Lysera's generals, a tall creature with scales like armor, walked up to him and smirked. "Tell me, human, do you even know how to fight?" Ethan looked at him for a moment. His tone stayed calm. "Sometimes fighting isn't the only way to win." The general laughed loudly. "Of course. You humans talk because you cannot fight." The others joined in, mocking him. Lysera watched silently, pretending not to notice. After all, it was true. Humans were soft, emotional, fragile. But when Ethan finally looked up, his voice changed. "We prefer peace," he said softly. "But when peace no longer works, we adapt." The hall grew quiet for a second. The general frowned, unsure what he meant. Lysera felt a strange chill run through her. Not fear, but curiosity. Then Ethan smiled faintly and raised his glass. "To peace," he said. The tension broke and laughter returned. But Lysera couldn't forget that calm, confident tone. Later, as the party ended, Lysera stood on her balcony overlooking the royal city. The towers glowed like stars against the dark sky. She felt a mix of relief and confusion. Her new husband was strange, quiet, polite, but hard to read. She turned as Ethan joined her, his eyes on the horizon. "You don't seem happy," he said softly. Lysera hesitated. "I just hope this alliance will last." Ethan nodded slowly. "It will, as long as your people mean peace." His words were simple, yet they carried weight. She looked at him curiously. "You speak as if you've seen many wars," he sighed. "Humans have a history of learning the hard way. We always hope for peace, but when pushed, we don't break, we change." Lysera didn't fully understand, but his calm voice made her uneasy. She had read about human wars. Short, bloody, emotional things. But the man beside her didn't seem emotional at all. He seemed controlled, too controlled. Later that night, while Ethan rested, Lysera joined her advisors in the council chamber. The conversation was secret, private. "Your Highness," one of them said, "the humans' technology is primitive. Their world could be a useful training ground for our young warriors. Perhaps we should occupy it quietly." The others agreed. Lysera said nothing at first. It was a tempting idea. Earth was weak, unprotected, far from the core worlds. Finally, she spoke. "Do nothing for now. We will study them first, but inside," she thought, "harmless." Yes, they are harmless. She didn't notice Ethan standing just outside the chamber, listening. His eyes were shadowed, his expression unreadable. When the meeting ended, He stepped onto the balcony and looked up at the night sky, toward Earth's distant star. "Let's hope," he whispered. "You never find out what we're really like." The next morning, the Empire's news channels spread the story of the royal marriage. Across the stars, people joked about the strange union. Memes and messages called Ethan the tamed human. In the palace, servants whispered that he was too soft, too quiet. Even the guards laughed when he passed. But Ethan never reacted. He kept learning, observing, studying everything. The guards' patrol routes, the city's defense systems, even the council's routines. Lysera watched him from a distance. He never raised his voice, never demanded anything. Yet sometimes, when he looked at something, a hologram, a soldier, a starship, she felt that same quiet pressure again. Like a wave waiting to rise, one night she finally asked, "Why don't their words bother you?" He looked at her calmly. "Because they don't know what to fear yet," she frowned. "And what should they fear?" Ethan smiled faintly. History. That night, as twin moons rose over the Silver City, Lysera stood awake in her chamber, thinking. The harmless human slept peacefully beside her, yet his words echoed in her mind. Peaceful, calm, controlled. But beneath that silence, something else, something waiting. She didn't know it yet, but the galaxy was about to learn the truth, that the harmless human was anything but harmless. And soon, everyone would remember why humans were never to be underestimated. Days passed in the shining towers of the Valyrian capital. To most of the Empire, the human named Ethan Cole was still a curiosity. A harmless man from a small blue planet. He smiled politely, spoke little, and seemed content to live in the shadow of his powerful alien wife, Princess Lysera. But behind that calm face, Ethan was learning. Every day, he studied the Empire's customs, its people, and most of all, its weaknesses. He watched the guards' rotations, memorized the palace maps, and read every public document he could access. He never asked questions, but Lysera noticed that he remembered everything. One morning, Lysera walked into the council chamber and found Ethan already there, standing near a glowing holographic map of the outer colonies. Her generals stopped talking as he turned to them. "Good morning," he said softly. "I didn't mean to interrupt." The council exchanged uneasy glances. The idea of a human standing among the Empire's highest officers felt like a joke. General Tharek, the same one who mocked him before, gave a cold smile. "Our discussion is about defense strategy, human. Nothing you'd understand." Ethan nodded. "Perhaps, but your colony here?" He pointed to a red marker on the map. "It's under risk of pirate attack within the month." The counselors laughed. "And how would you know that?" one of them asked. Ethan shrugged lightly. "Your trade routes are public. Pirates always follow patterns. You send supply ships without escorts, and your radar coverage is incomplete." "It's predictable," Tharek sneered. "Predictable to you, maybe? You humans think too small." Ethan's voice stayed even. "Maybe, but sometimes small thinking saves lives." Lysera watched in silence. She wasn't sure whether to be annoyed or impressed. His tone wasn't proud, but confident. A quiet kind of authority. When the meeting ended, Tharek smirked and muttered, "Let's see how long the human's luck lasts." 3 weeks later, a desperate message reached the capital. The very colony Ethan had pointed to was under pirate attack. The fleet scrambled to respond, but their reaction was slow. By the time they arrived, the pirates had stolen supplies and left hundreds dead. Lysera sat in silence as the report played. Ethan stood beside her, his expression calm but his eyes cold. "I told them," he said quietly. She turned to him. "You knew this would happen?" "I guessed," he replied. "Humans are good at guessing danger. It's how we survived." His voice wasn't proud, it sounded tired, almost sad. Lysera didn't know what to say. She had grown up believing humans were impulsive, emotional, weak. But the man standing before her had seen the future coming and had tried to stop it. For the first time, she began to wonder, maybe weakness and kindness were not the same thing. A few days later, Lysera invited Ethan to attend another council meeting. The general still didn't take him seriously, but she insisted. During the discussion, news came in of another potential pirate threat, this time near the Narath system, a vital mining region. The council planned to send a massive fleet to destroy the raiders. Ethan leaned forward slightly. "If I may," he said. "That's a mistake." The room went silent. Tharek narrowed his eyes. "And what makes you say that, human?" Ethan stood, projecting a smaller map onto the table. "It's too obvious. You're sending ships along the direct path. The pirates will see you coming. Instead, send decoy beacons along this route." He pointed to the side of the system. "And hide your real fleet here, behind the moon's shadow. They'll think your ship's retreated," Tharek laughed. "Hide? That's not how warriors fight." Ethan looked at him calmly. "It's how survivors fight." Lysera watched the argument closely. The council eventually ignored his advice and followed Tharek's plan instead. When the fleet reached the system, they found empty space. The pirates had already escaped, after raiding a different colony entirely. Another failure, another embarrassment. Lysera looked at Ethan later that evening and asked quietly, "How did you know again?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Because I think like them." That answer stayed in her mind for a long time. One night, Lysera found Ethan sitting on the palace balcony looking at the stars. The wind was cool, and the twin moons painted the city in silver light. "Do humans always think like this?" she asked. He chuckled softly. "Like what?" "Always planning, always guessing what others will do." He thought for a moment before answering. "It's not planning. It's surviving. We never had claws or armor or wings. We only had our minds. So we learned to use them." Lysera studied his face. There was no pride there, only honesty. "Your people sound dangerous," she whispered. "Only when they have to be," he said, and turned his gaze back to the stars. The next morning, Lysera walked into the military command center and found her generals whispering nervously. She stopped. "What's wrong?" A technician spoke up. "Your Highness, we're detecting pirate ships again. This time near the outer nebula colonies." Before anyone could react, Ethan entered quietly, holding a datapad. "Don't send the fleet," he said simply. "Wait," Tharek glared. "You again? What are you suggesting?" Ethan looked at the hologram calmly. "They're baiting you. They'll hit one colony, then jump coordinates to attack another while your fleet is chasing them. You'll lose both," Tharek slammed the table. "And what do you suggest, human genius?" Ethan stepped closer. "Jam their sensors. Send fake distress calls from nearby systems. Make them believe reinforcements are already on the way. When they retreat, trap them between your stealth scouts." The generals stared at him. Lysera could see their hesitation. Finally, she said, "Do it." The plan worked. Within hours, the pirate fleet was caught between ambush points, unable to escape. For the first time in years, the Valyrian Empire destroyed an entire pirate faction, without losing a single ship. The council erupted in shock. Tharek refused to meet Ethan's eyes. Lysera, however, did, and this time her look wasn't cold, and it was curious almost. Respectful. Later that evening, she found Ethan in the garden, sitting under the glowing trees. "You saved hundreds of lives," she said. He smiled faintly. "I didn't save them. I just stopped people from dying." "Still," she said, sitting beside him, "you did what my generals couldn't." Ethan looked up at the stars again. Sometimes strength isn't about size or power. It's about knowing when to think instead of react. Lysera looked at him silently. For the first time, she felt something she never thought she would feel toward a human. Admiration. She stood to leave, but before she did, she asked quietly, "Ethan, are all humans like you?" He smiled, not looking away from the sky. "Not all. Some are kinder, some are worse. But one thing is true for all of us. When we care about something, we don't let it go easily." Lysera walked away, her heart heavy with thought. The Empire had called humans harmless, but now she wasn't sure. Somehow she felt the real test hadn't even begun. The palace had changed. Where once laughter filled the marble halls, now whispers followed the human everywhere he went. The nobles no longer mocked him as openly, and the guards, who once smirked when he passed, now stood a little straighter. The story of how Ethan Cole, the quiet human, had outsmarted pirates had spread like wildfire through the Empire. Yet, Ethan acted the same, calm, polite, almost invisible. He woke early, studied the star maps, walked through the gardens, and spent evenings reading human literature from his datapad. Princess Lysera couldn't understand him. He had power but never used it. He had respect but never asked for it. He carried no weapons, yet every soldier who met him said they'd rather face 10 enemies than that one quiet man's stare. One morning, Lysera found him standing alone in the strategy room. The holographic stars reflected off his face, painting him in blue light. He was studying a file labeled Tarkon Empire, Border Activity. She frowned. "Why are you reading classified files?" Ethan didn't look up. "Because you're going to war soon." Her eyes widened. "That's absurd." "The Tarkons wouldn't dare. They will," Ethan interrupted softly. "They're watching your fleets, counting your losses from the pirate wars. They see your empire getting slower, weaker. It's what predators do when they smell blood." Lysera stepped closer. "How do you know this?" He looked at her then, calm, steady. "Because that's what humans used to do too." That night, Lysera couldn't sleep. His words replayed in her mind. She had grown up learning that humans were a peaceful race. Soft, emotional, always searching for friendship. But Ethan spoke differently. There was something dark in his calm tone, something that hinted at knowledge written in pain and survival. Curiosity became obsession. The next day, she ordered her attendants to fetch every document about Earth's history available in the Imperial archives. She spent hours reading. Wars. Endless wars. Nations rising and falling. Weapons beyond imagination. Cities turned to ash. Yet humanity never died. Even after entire continents burned, the humans rebuilt. Again and again when she finished, her hands trembled. How are they still alive after all this?" she whispered. One of her aides, a young Valyrian scholar, replied carefully, "They adapt, Your Highness. They change faster than any race we've seen. When they lose, they learn. When they're cornered, they fight like no other." Lysera dismissed him, but her mind wouldn't rest. She looked toward the balcony where Ethan often sat at night and felt a chill. Was he calm because he was harmless, or because he had already seen what horror really looked like? That evening she approached him. The twin moons shone above, and the city lights glittered below. Ethan didn't turn as she came closer. "You found the files," he said quietly. She froze. "You knew I'd look?" He gave a small smile. "Curiosity is a strength." "You needed to know," Lysera hesitated. "Your people. You fought more wars than any race in the galaxy." "Why?" He was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, but his eyes seemed far away. "Because we had to. We were never the strongest, never the fastest, so we learned to survive anything. Cold, hunger, disease, even each other. We learned that peace is precious and but fragile. And when it breaks, we fight harder than anyone." Lysera shivered. "And what happens when you lose?" He looked at her. "We don't stay lost for long." A soft alarm echoed through the night. A red flash from the sky above the city. Lysera's communicator buzzed. "Your Highness, there's been an explosion in the eastern docks. Unknown origin." Within minutes, the palace was in chaos. Guards rushed through the corridors, and the sky filled with patrol drones. Ethan followed silently as Lysera made her way to the command center. The hologram showed smoke rising from the industrial sector. 3 cargo ships destroyed, one of them carrying military equipment. "Sabotage," one officer said. "We think Tarkon agents are involved." Lysera clenched her fists. "Find them." Ethan's calm voice broke through the noise. "You won't. They're already gone." Everyone turned toward him. "What do you mean?" "They're testing you," Ethan said. "They wanted to see how fast you respond, how you panic. Now they know." The officers stared at him, stunned. Lysera felt that same chill again, the quiet certainty in his voice. "Then what should we do?" she asked. He met her gaze. "Prepare quietly. Hide your strongest fleets near the borders. Don't announce it. Let them think you're unprepared." She nodded slowly. "You sound like you've done this before." Ethan smiled faintly. "Once or twice. Humans learned long ago, never show your teeth until you have to bite." For weeks, things seemed calm again. But beneath that calm, tension spread. Fleets repositioned, spies vanished, and trade ships began reporting strange movements near the border. Ethan spent long hours alone, studying old tactical maps and patterns. Lysera would sometimes watch him silently, the way he thought, the way he moved pieces on the holographic board, as if he were already predicting every possible future. One night, she asked him softly. "What are you afraid of, Ethan?" He didn't answer at first. Then with a sigh, he said, "I'm afraid of what humans become when we're pushed too far." Lysera frowned. "What do you mean?" He looked up at her, eyes calm but heavy. "We're peaceful because we remember what happens when we're not." 2 days later, the Tarkon Empire made its move. Their fleet crossed into Valyrian space without warning, destroying an outpost and declaring war. Panic filled the capital. The council gathered in fear and anger. Lysera turned to Ethan. "You knew this was coming." He nodded once. "You can't reason with predators when they smell weakness." Tharek, the proud general, slammed the table. "Enough of his cryptic talk. He's just a human. What does he know of war?" Ethan met his glare without flinching. "More than you want to believe." The room fell silent. Lysera stood. "General Tharek, prepare the fleets as he advised, quietly. No public messages. If Ethan is wrong, I'll take full blame." Tharek looked furious but obeyed. As the generals left, Lysera turned to Ethan. "Why are you helping us? This isn't your war." He looked out the window at the stars. "Because when someone I care about is in danger, I don't sit and watch." Lysera blinked, surprised by the warmth in his tone. "You mean me?" Ethan smiled faintly. "You and your people. You call us harmless, but we care deeply. And that's what makes us dangerous." That night, the princess couldn't sleep again. Outside, thunder rolled from distant storms, but in her mind, Ethan's words echoed louder. "Peaceful because we remember. Dangerous because we care." The next day, she looked out at the rising sun and finally understood something she had never considered before. Humans didn't survive because they were strong. They survived because nothing, no enemy, no empire, no fear, could ever make them give up. And soon, the galaxy was about to learn that truth the hard way. The first attack came at dawn. From the sky above the Valyrian frontier worlds, bright streaks of red and silver tore through the clouds. The Tarkon Empire, known for their brutal tactics and overwhelming power, had begun their invasion. Colonies that once sparkled with light now burned across the horizon. Communications broke apart as screams filled the channels. The galaxy that had called humans harmless was now learning what happens when arrogance meets preparation. But they didn't know it yet. Inside the Royal Command Center, alarms flashed crimson. Princess Lysera stood at the center of chaos. Officers shouting reports, generals barking orders, and holograms showing the advancing Tarkon fleets. "They're breaking through our outer line. Sector 9 has fallen. We need reinforcements now." Lysera's voice cut through the noise. "Where is General Tharek?" Tharek rushed in, his face pale. They hit faster than expected. "We've lost the eastern colonies already. Their main fleet is heading straight for us." Before she could respond, another voice spoke. Calm, steady, and out of place amid the panic. "Then you're fighting them wrong." Every head turned. Ethan Cole stood by the entrance, hands clasped behind his back. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with cold focus. Tharek sneered. "This is not the time for your human logic, Cole." Ethan stepped closer to the holographic map. "Exactly. Logic won't save you now, but adaptability will." He tapped the map and several red dots blinked. "They expect you to fight head-on. You'll lose if you do. Pull your main fleet back here behind the third moon. Hide your defense grid's energy signature. When they advance, let them think you've retreated." Lysera frowned. "You want us to run?" Ethan shook his head. "No, I want them to walk into your jaws," the council murmured in disbelief. Tharek slammed the table. "Insanity! The Tarkons will destroy us if we fall back." Ethan's voice stayed quiet. "If you fight now, you'll lose every ship you have. The Tarkons thrive on fear. They charge fast, hit hard, and expect panic. Don't give them what they expect." Lysera's eyes met his. There was something in that calm voice that felt right. She nodded. "Do as he says." Tharek stared at her in disbelief. "Princess, that's an order," she said sharply. The generals hesitated but eventually obeyed. The fleets withdrew, hiding behind the third moon as Ethan had suggested. Hours passed. Then the Tarkon ships arrived, enormous, dark, and silent, cutting through the void like blades. They fired wildly into empty space, expecting resistance. But the Valyrian defenses were gone. "They think we fled," whispered one officer. Ethan leaned forward. Good. Let them think that. The Tarkans moved deeper, breaking formation as they chased phantom signals. That was when Ethan gave the signal. Now. Dozens of hidden Valyrian ships emerged from the moon's shadow. From below, the defense satellites powered up, their energy trails invisible until the moment of strike. Explosions lit up the sky like fireworks. The Tarkan fleet twisted in confusion, unable to find the source of attack. Lysera watched in awe. They're panicking. Ethan nodded. Predators don't know what to do when their prey bites back. The first wave was a success. For the first time, the Valyrian fleet had stopped a Tarkan assault without losing a ship. The council erupted in relief and applause, but Ethan didn't smile. He was already staring at the next holographic feed, new red dots appearing across multiple systems. They're adapting, he said quietly. The next wave won't fall for the same trick. Lysera looked at him. Then what do we do? He turned toward her, his eyes reflecting the burning stars. We make them afraid. That night, Ethan gathered a small team of mixed soldiers, humans, Valyrians, and even a few alien volunteers. They boarded an old stealth ship, stripped of insignia and markings. Lysera followed him to the hangar, watching as he prepared. You're going out there yourself? He nodded. If they want to fight, I'll give them one, but on our terms, she frowned. You're not a soldier, Ethan. He smiled faintly. No, I'm human. The engines roared to life and the stealth ship vanished into the stars. The mission was simple but dangerous. Disrupt the Tarkan fleet's communication network. Without it, their massive forces would become blind and disorganized. For 2 days, nothing was heard. Then reports came in. The Tarkans were suddenly fighting each other. Ships colliding, command orders confused. Lysera received a message from Ethan's team. Only 3 words. They're in chaos. She laughed softly for the first time in weeks. He did it, but her relief didn't last long. Another message followed, encrypted, faint, and almost lost in static. We're compromised. Returning under fire, Lysera's heart froze. She ran to the command deck. Get me their signal. The technicians tried, but interference was heavy. The ship was being chased by Tarkan destroyers. Then, through the static, Ethan's calm voice came again. Don't worry. I told them humans don't die easy. Moments later, the Tarkan ships disappeared from sensors. Ambushed by automated mines Ethan had secretly planted before the mission. The stealth ship reappeared, damaged but alive. When he stepped off the ramp covered in dust and burns, the soldiers saluted him. Even Tharek did, silently with shame and respect. Lysera walked toward him. You saved us again. Ethan smiled weakly. Not saved, just delayed. He pointed at the holographic display showing new red clusters. They're sending their main fleet now. Days turned into nights filled with endless strategy sessions. The Tarkans advanced slowly, testing every defense, adapting to every counter. But Ethan was always one step ahead. He changed codes, moved fleets silently, and tricked the enemy into chasing decoys. Every time the Tarkans thought they had trapped the Valyrians, they fell into Ethan's traps instead. The galaxy started whispering a new name, the human strategist. Some called him a genius. Others called him a monster. But to Lysera, he was something else, a mystery wrapped in quiet strength. One evening, she found him alone again, staring at the stars. You've done more for this empire than anyone. Why? He turned slowly, his face lit by the soft blue light of the moons. Because when humans find something worth protecting, he said, we don't stop, not even if it kills us. Lysera felt her heart tighten. For the first time, she saw not just a strategist or a husband, but a man carrying the weight of an entire species' history. She whispered, you really aren't harmless. Ethan smiled faintly. I told you that the first night. The next morning, a message arrived from the Tarkan High Command, a demand for surrender. Ethan looked at the words and chuckled softly. They still think fear will work, Lysera asked quietly. Then what will you do? He straightened, his voice calm and firm. Show them what humans do when fear doesn't. The galaxy was about to witness it. The quiet human who outsmarted empires. The man once mocked as harmless, now standing at the center of a war that would change everything. And for the first time, The Valyrian princess wasn't afraid. She finally understood that her husband didn't just fight to win, he fought to end wars. The galaxy trembled. After weeks of brutal clashes, the war between the Valyrian Empire and the Tarkhan Dominion had reached its peak. Planets burned, fleets shattered, and both sides bled across the stars. Yet somehow the Valyrians were still standing. All because of one man, Ethan Cole. The quiet human who once seemed harmless had become the Empire's most dangerous weapon. Princess Lysera watched the battle maps flicker inside the command hall. Red dots, enemy fleets, only kept vanishing one after another. It wasn't magic, it was Ethan. But with every victory, she noticed something else. He was changing. His voice had grown colder. His eyes no longer softened when he spoke to her. One night she found him alone again, sitting in the dark, the hologram of the battlefield lighting his face. "Ethan," she said softly, stepping closer. "You should rest." He didn't look up. "Rest is for people who don't have ghosts chasing them." She frowned. "Ghosts?" Ethan's eyes shifted toward her, sharp, distant. "Do you know what humans do when we're cornered, Lysera?" She hesitated. "You fight," he shook his head. "No, we adapt. We learn everything we can about the enemy, their weaknesses, their fears, and we make sure they never forget us." Lysera could feel a strange chill in his words. "Is that what you're doing now?" Ethan looked back at the map. "That's what I was trained to do." The next day, the War Council gathered again. They had received a distress signal. A small colony world was under attack. The Tarkhans had deployed their void cannons, weapons that could melt through planetary shields. General Tharek slammed his fist on the table. "We can't save them in time." Ethan stood quietly, hands behind his back. "No," he said. "But we can make sure the Tarkhans never use those cannons again." He zoomed the map to the enemy base. "They're storing their weapons on an orbital foundry. We hit it here, and the explosion will chain through their entire fleet." Lysera's eyes widened. "That's suicide." "There are thousands of Tarkhan workers there. Not soldiers, civilians." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Every war has ghosts. You just decide which ones you can live with." The room went silent. Lysera stared at him, horrified. "You're not the man I married." Ethan's voice was low, steady. "You married a human, Lysera. You just didn't know what that meant." The plan was executed within hours. The Valyrian strike fleet moved in quietly under Ethan's command. The foundry never stood a chance. When the explosion came, it lit up the night side of the Tarkhan home system. A wave of fire so massive it could be seen from light years away. Entire fleets vanished in seconds. The War Council celebrated. They called it a miracle. But Lysera didn't celebrate. She saw the haunted look in Ethan's eyes as the screen flickered with debris and silence. He whispered under his breath, almost to himself. Just like before. All over again. Later that night she found him sitting in the war garden, the one place still untouched by conflict. The faint hum of night insects filled the air as stars glimmered above. She approached quietly. "What did you mean, just like before?" Ethan didn't answer immediately. His hands were clasped tightly, his knuckles white. Finally he spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "You've seen humanity's kindness, Lysera. The music, the laughter, the love. But there's another side we hide, the one we built in fire." He looked up at the stars. "My ancestors destroyed themselves once. Entire cities burned to ash. We built weapons that could erase continents, and we used them. That's humanity's shadow. It never really goes away." Lysera's chest tightened. "You carry it with you." Ethan nodded slowly. "Every human does. That's why we fear war, because we remember what happens when we stop fearing it." For a long moment neither spoke. Then a faint tone interrupted them. A message. A Valyrian scout ship had intercepted a Tarkhan transmission. Ethan played it silently. "The human strategist must die. Deploy the Shadow Fleet, full annihilation protocol." Lysera gasped. "They're coming for you." Ethan simply stood. "Let them. Maybe it's time they met the part of me they're afraid of." The following day, the skies above Oralis Prime darkened. The Tarkhan Shadow Fleet, massive ships with dark armor that absorbed light, entered orbit. Their weapons glowed crimson. Ethan took command of the planetary defense grid. "They want me," he said. "Then I'll give them a reason to regret it." The Tarkhan fleet began their assault. raining plasma across the planet. But this time, Ethan didn't order a retreat or a trap. He ordered silence. The Valyrian officers stared at him. "Sir, we can't just sit here." Ethan raised a hand. "Wait for it." Moments later, the Tarkon ship suddenly exploded. Not from enemy fire, but from inside. Lysera turned to him in shock. "What did you do?" Ethan watched the burning wrecks fall through the sky. "I planted viruses in their navigation cores weeks ago. I let them come close, and then I turned their systems against them." Tharek muttered in disbelief. "That's monstrous." Ethan's voice was cold. "That's human." When the battle ended, silence fell again over the command hall. The Tarkon Shadow Fleet was gone, completely wiped out. The victory was absolute. But to Lysera, it didn't feel like one. She looked at Ethan. He was standing by the window, staring at the falling debris, his face unreadable. "Ethan," she said softly, "you saved millions of lives today." He didn't turn. "And killed thousands to do it." Lysera hesitated. "They would have killed us." He finally looked at her. "And one day, someone else will say the same about me." She took a slow step toward him. "You can't carry that forever." Ethan smiled sadly. "It's already mine to carry." That night, the galaxy broadcasted the news. The human strategist defeats the Tarkon Shadow Fleet. Valyrian Empire declares victory. But rumors also spread. Whispers that the harmless human had unleashed weapons even the Tarkons feared. Some called him a hero, others a monster in disguise, and Lysera? She no longer knew what to believe. Was Ethan her husband? The kind, gentle man she once loved? Or was he the shadow that humanity left behind, reborn to save them all? As dawn broke across the sky, Ethan stood alone on the balcony, watching the sunrise burn through the clouds. Lysera joined him, her voice soft. "Is it finally over?" He shook his head. "Wars end when people stop fighting, but fear never ends." She reached for his hand. "Then what are you fighting for now?" He looked down at their joined hands and whispered, "For the day when humans won't need shadows to survive." The light of the sun caught his face, and for a moment, Lysera saw both sides of him, the human who loved and the warrior who destroyed. And she understood something she never had before. Humanity wasn't harmless. It was hope wrapped in fire. The war was supposed to be over. The Tarkon Dominion had fallen silent after their shadow fleet was destroyed. The stars were peaceful again, the borders quiet. For the first time in months, the Valyrian people began to hope. But Ethan Cole didn't believe in silence. He knew the enemy was not gone, only waiting. Inside the royal command chamber, the lights dimmed as Ethan and Princess Lysera reviewed the latest transmissions. A faint energy surge had been detected near the Orion Rift, a dead zone known for its unstable gravity and strange readings. Tharek entered, looking uneasy. Scouts report massive energy signatures. Could be Tarkon survivors or something worse. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Worse?" Tharek nodded. "They say the Tarkons called for help." Something answered. The word sent a chill through the room. Lysera frowned. "You mean another empire?" Tharek shook his head. "No, something ancient." Ethan turned away from the map. His voice was calm but tight. "Then we don't wait for it to come to us." Within hours, fleets were mobilized. The Valyrian Defense Armada, rebuilt under Ethan's guidance, gathered at the edge of the rift. Ships gleamed silver under the starlight, thousands strong. Lysera stood beside him on the command deck. "You don't even know what's out there," she said quietly. Ethan gave a faint smile. That's never stopped humans before. As the fleet advanced, the darkness ahead of them seemed to move, shifting like a living shadow. Suddenly, hundreds of massive shapes emerged. The new enemy wasn't Tarkon. It was older, colder, and mechanical. Machines built for one purpose: consumption. The scanners screamed as the first energy blasts struck. Dozens of ships vanished instantly. Lysera gasped. "They're devouring the wreckage, recycling it." Ethan's voice hardened. "Self-replicating war machines. Tarkons must have woken them. We're facing extinction tech." He took a deep breath. "Everyone retreat to defensive position Delta. Prepare for the worst." Hours turned into chaos. The Valyrian fleet fought bravely, but the enemy adapted to every tactic. Lasers bounced off reflective armor. Missiles detonated harmlessly mid-air. The machines learned faster than anyone expected. "Ethan, we can't hold them," shouted Theric. "We'll be wiped out." Ethan stood silent for a moment, watching the swarm of glowing machines move like a tide. Then he whispered, "Not if I end it first." Lysera turned to him. "What do you mean?" He looked at her, his expression calm, yet there was something final in his eyes. "When we built the new defense grid, I included a failsafe, something no one else knows about. Human invention, the Prometheus core. It's designed to collapse a star if triggered manually." Lysera's voice shook. "That would destroy everything in this system, including you." He nodded. "It'll destroy them too. Every machine, every signal, every trace. If they reach another world, no one will survive. Not humans, not Valyrians." She grabbed his arm. "There has to be another way." Ethan looked down at her hand, then back into her eyes. "There's always another way, but not always enough time to find it." The bridge fell silent. Outside, the machines were tearing through the outer defense line. The sky burned with explosions. Ethan turned to Theric. "Get the fleet clear of the system." Theric hesitated. "And you?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Someone has to stay and press the button." Lysera stepped forward. "Then I'm staying too." Ethan shook his head. "No, you're their hope now. They need a leader, not another ghost." She stared at him, tears forming in her eyes. "You're not a ghost, Ethan. You're my husband." He reached out, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "And you made me more human than I've ever been." The evacuation began. Ships jumped to hyperspace one by one, fleeing the system. Ethan remained behind on the main station, connected to the Prometheus core. Lysera refused to leave until the last moment. "Please," she whispered through the comms. "Come with us. We'll find another way." Ethan's voice came through the static, calm and steady. "You once called humans harmless, Lysera, remember?" She choked on a sob. "I was wrong," he smiled softly. "No, you were right. We're not monsters. We don't fight because we love war. We fight because we love peace. That's what makes us dangerous." As the enemy swarmed closer, Ethan activated the final sequence. The Prometheus core hummed, glowing brighter and brighter until the whole station shook. Lysera's voice came through one last time. "Ethan, what should I tell them about you?" He paused. Then quietly he said, "Tell them humans aren't harmless, we just hope too much." And with that, the signal cut out. Moments later, the star ignited, collapsing inward, devouring everything in a blinding flash. The shockwave ripped through space, consuming the machines and their fleet in one unstoppable wave of light. The Valyrian ships, already at the edge of the system, watched in silence as the light faded behind them. No one spoke. Weeks later, the galaxy honored a hero. The story of the harmless human spread across hundreds of worlds. Statues were built, songs were sung, and his name, Ethan Cole, became a legend whispered in every corner of space. Lysera ruled the Valyrian Empire with grace and sorrow. She kept one small token, Ethan's old flight badge, beside her throne. Every night, she would look at the stars, searching the glow of distant suns. Sometimes she imagined hearing his voice again, calm, gentle, teasing. "Told you I wasn't harmless." She would smile faintly and whisper back, "No, you weren't, you were human." Years passed. But one day, deep scanners from the outer colonies detected a faint signal, human in origin, buried beneath the ruins of the Orion Rift. It was weak, almost gone, but it carried a message. "If anyone hears this and we made it count." Lysera stared at the message for a long time, her heart pounding. Then she smiled through her tears. "He always does," she whispered. And so, the galaxy moved on, safer, wiser, forever changed by one quiet man, who proved that being human wasn't about strength or cruelty. It was about choice. The choice to stand when others run, to fight when hope fades, and to love even when love means letting go. In the end, the stars kept his memory alive. Because legends never die, especially the ones that remind the universe that humans are never harmless.